This episode of the Old Boy Podcast is with Jen Phillips. What an amazing discussion. She has taken her welding career and once she started a family, has kind of evolved it into what fits her lifestyle. But it's also allowed her to take those skills that she learned and apply those in places that she really enjoys, whether it be hunting and fishing. Some of the charitable things she's done with her skills are really unreal, and you do not want to miss how she was able to put her artwork as part of the new Planet of the Apes release. I hope you enjoy.
Man, do you hear that? Look at here. They're coming. They're coming. We're going to have a party. I'm talking good on barbecue.
Hey guys, welcome back and thank you for joining us for this episode. I am thoroughly excited to sit down and talk with the owner of Metal Monkey Designs. I did not want to fumble that. Too many M's in there. Metal Monkey Designs, amazing metal sculptor, amazing welder, great mom, and she loves the outdoors like us. Jen Phillips. How are you doing today, Jen?
I'm doing good. How are you doing, Chad?
I'm doing great. Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah, happy to be here.
So you are coming to us from the Great North, right? Saskatchewan?
Yeah, Long Gone, Saskatchewan.
Awesome. And I was kind of just doing a little research, preparing for you. And by the way, your Instagram page is very, very easy to take up like 30 to 45 minutes of anybody's time. Some of the sculpture work is just so amazing, and I look forward to chatting about it, but kind of wanted to talk about, you know, a female in welding. You know, I love that we're seeing more of it, but where did that love and passion come from? I know, you know, around the early age, 15, 16, you kind of started getting into it.
Yeah. So I started welding. You're spot on there. I was about 15 years old. Kind of that age where people are deciding what they want to do with their lives, what career path they're going to take. And I guess I didn't really know. I was never big on school. I was always more of kind of a hands-on person. My stepdad always worked oil field construction. So I actually thought I was going to get into welding inspection. So talking to my dad, we thought a good route would be for me to get my welding ticket first. And so I'd know what I was talking about out there. And so I got a job at a fabrication shop in town, started welding, and no lie, I loved it like immediately. Like I knew in that moment, like hell yeah, this is what I want to do.
What do you think it was about it? Was it working with your hands? Was it being able to, you know, make something or prepare something? Like what do you think it was that just like you said, like, I know this is what I want to do. Like, I really enjoy this.
Yeah, I think 100% working with your hands, just the ability, like, welding in itself is an art. And I loved welding even long before I started doing sculpture, any art stuff. I loved welding. And, you know, I guess I love the fact that when you put your hood down, that's it. The rest of the world is drowned out, all the thoughts in your head. Like, to be so hyper-focused on something, I think that's really rare to find these days. And, you know, for me, like, welding is my escape. So I think that was a huge part of it and why I loved it so much.
I love that fact of, like you said, when the hood's down, like everything else blocks out. Like that's a cool visual. And I can see where that's like where, you know, you can get to an 8-hour workday, but 8-10-hour workday, but it fly by because you just get, like you said, so hyper focused and so into the work that, you know, it just flies by, especially when you're paying attention to every little detail.
100%. And that's just it. I mean, welders don't get much slack, right? Because every weld that you do has to be dialed in. If your mind's over here and you have some shit weld come out, you know, like, whereas not shitting on pipe fitters, but, you know, they maybe have a little more slack. Those fit ups aren't always tight.
I love it. It's I've said this on the show a few times, but I grew up in a family of welders. My grandfather was a master welder, really, really, really good. Did a lot of work on drag lines and could just do anything, it seemed like, with a torch. And then both of my uncles, he obviously taught them. I did not get to learn from him because nobody in our family had went to college. And he said, and I remember, and I would always sit, I mean, from the time I was 10, 11 years old during the summers, you know, I would just go down there and sit in his shop and watch him, you know, lay it down. And he'd tell me what he was doing, this and that. And I remember I got probably about the age you got into it, 15, 16. And I'm like, Papa, man, you really got to teach me how to do this. Like, I want to make something. He's like, son, let me tell you how this runs. He goes, you're actually one of the few that could actually go to college in our family. He's like, so if I teach you how to weld, he's like, I know you're going to get in it. You're going to get really good at it. He goes, you're going to find out, and this is back in the 90s. He's like, you're going to go find out you can make $20 an hour as an apprentice, and you're going to say, why the hell am I going to college? And I was like, well, damn. And that was back in those days too. And that gets, to another point where it's like, I grew up in that era where, like, oh my God, if he doesn't go to college, we got to worry about him showing up in a ditch somewhere. You know what I mean? Like, which I feel like is totally, as we've learned more about the education system, we've seen people get strapped down ridiculous amount of debt. Like, I love the fact now that some people are looking at it going, you know what? It's just not for me. Like you said, I want to work with my hands. I want to do this. I want to do that. I think getting rid of that stigma of because you didn't go to college, you're not going to amount to shit should be over and done and never thought about again. Even as a guy that has a college degree, I always said to me, that degree only does one thing. It gets you in the door for your first job. I promoted many a person that did not have a degree over a person that did have a degree because I'm looking at work ethic and body of work at that point, nothing else. You know what I mean? But it's fun to talk to someone that just saw that from the beginning. Like, no, I want to do something, and you figured it out, and then just fell in love with it.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely what you said there about that whole stigma. Because even 10 years ago I graduated, that still was a stigma, and it's going into the trades is because you were dumb, or you know what I mean? It's, that's what it was. You can't take those, higher classes. That's why you're going into the trades. Where maybe it was just a choice. And to me, I think it's for young people now who aren't certain what they want to do. Why not go get a trade, spend 3 years, get your ticket? You always have that to fall back on. You'll always have a job. It's a no-brainer for me, and I hope. Doing what I do and reaching this large audience, I hope that, I reach a lot of young people who see that. I think, right, in this day and age, that's so valuable to teach kids.
Yeah, no, and I look at you on the welding side, and we've had Lexi on the electrician side. Like, we need to show the strong, and especially your story too, because you're a wife, you're a mother also. I mean, when we get into talking about kind of the art and the sculpture, I mean, that's what made you kind of make that shift in your career. And I think that's something to be shown too, is, you can still be a mother, a wife, and, be a very respected and skilled tradesperson too. It doesn't have to be one or the other.
100%. Yeah, it's really fun connecting with, girls like Lex, because she is doing the mom thing too. And we're both kind of figuring out that balance of being very career driven, but also, having that family life going. So it's cool to connect with kind of like-minded women like that.
Yeah.
So.
And it's interesting too, like me and her had a little conversation about it. And it's like, at some point too, it's like, you've got to balance everything out and understand where the most value lies, and not just monetarily, but value to you. You know what I mean? And sometimes as things start to grow and you get known more, like, you've got to start saying no to a few things. And I think for a lot of us that are, kind of self-built, that's very hard to do, right? Because we're used to taking every opportunity, every second of exposure, but every now and then you have to step back and go, okay, but is this the balance that I want for life? Not career, not social media presence, but like for my life, who I am, who is in my day-to-day, is this the right balance? And it's fluid sometimes. It's really hard to get your hands around and manage.
100%. Oh yeah, you absolutely got that right. I think that's, for me, doing what I'm doing, and for, I would say, most people, is the most, like, the hardest part. Absolutely. It's the most challenging, because I don't think any of us have it down to a science. I don't think anyone has it figured out, exactly. We're all trying our best, because it's a day-to-day thing. You know, it's choices you're making every day. I mean, I'm very lucky. I don't have that 9 to 5. So for me, a lot of the time, like, it looks like waking up super early or working through the night just so I can hang out with the kids maybe during the day a little bit more. So I'm very grateful to have that kind of flexibility. But still, it's still a challenge.
Are you fortunate enough that your shop's at your house?
I am. Yeah. Footsteps away.
Awesome.
Yeah,
Tuck
it helps.
the kids in, go out, throw on the hood, and get to work.
Pretty much. Oh yeah, absolutely. Just looked like that any days.
Do you find, I know as a barbecue guy, like I like doing a lot of work at night because it just lends itself to it, right? Prep at night, put meat on at night, that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And I enjoy it. There's something about working at night that I don't know if you feel like you're getting one over or like I'm just working harder than you because I'm not working during daylight. How are you about working at night?
100%. I'm with you there. Super early in the morning or late at night. Like, and I find I'm the most motivated then. I think just what you said, you feel like you're getting a one up. Like all you
Yeah.
guys are in bed and I'm
I'm
grinding.
hustling.
I'm getting ahead.
Yes,
So
I
I
love
feel
it.
that. Yeah.
I
I'm
love
with
it.
you there.
So getting back to a little bit of the evolution, you know, so you worked at this fab shop and then moved on, and I believe you went to college and got your red seal.
Yeah. So I worked at this fabrication shop 10, 11, 12. And then as soon as I graduated high school, I went and got my welding ticket, which I think I got at age 21. I got my journeyman red seal. And then I went out to work in the field a little bit. I did a little bit of pipeline. I was just helping on the line, and then did some station kind of stuff like that. So I kind of have a good mix of fab stuff, fab shop, field work, kind of got to see, you know, all the different sides of it, which was good experience wise.
Would you explain to me what a red seal is, and is that something like that's like North American or just Canadian? Like, what is the statement red seal? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, so Canadian red seal, it basically is the highest standard you can be for a trade, like for a tradesperson. So if you have your red seal, you're basically, you're more qualified, I guess, is on paper. I mean, I think down in the States, you guys I don't believe you have red seal, but it is recognized. So if you're getting a job down there, if you have your red seal versus someone who doesn't, you know, you're more likely to get that job, if that makes sense.
No, that's very cool. No, I was curious of it. I'm like, I'm just gonna ask her. Don't look it up, Chad. You got an expert on. Just ask them.
Yeah, there you go.
But that and that's got to feel good. I mean, at 21 to get a certification like that, I mean, that's got to feel pretty fulfilling.
Yeah, so I got my red seal, worked a bit in the field, and then I actually got my B pressure ticket as well, but I didn't get that till after I had Ellie. I was 3 months postpartum and went and got my B pressure ticket because I thought I was going pipeline again.
But that's really cool. And you know, I know in Canada, you know, a lot of folks find really good livings in the pipeline world. You know what I mean? Talk to me a little bit about your experience there. I know you said your stepdad did some work there, so obviously you had exposure to it when you were younger, but what was it like, you know, being out and working in the patch and some of the pros and cons?
So obviously, as a girl, I had a little bit of a different experience, but I was extremely lucky because my older brother was a pipe fitter. So he was on these jobs that I would go on. So I had my dad looking out for me because he was kind of well known in the industry, and then I had my older brother. So I was very lucky in that aspect, but I was still exposed to all the things that you're exposed to on the pipeline. I mean, as far as life experience, I was 18 years old when I got my first out of town job. And I mean, it was intimidating as hell, to say the least, right? You're walking to a job site and I'm 18 years old, and you know, you're walking onto this job site with a lot of men, older men, and you got to stand your ground and you got to prove yourself. But once you prove yourself, then that's the most rewarding thing. Like once you gain that respect, like for me, people ask all the time, what's your advice for young women entering the trades? And I think for me, it's no matter what gender you are, like you're a boy or girl, if you work hard, people are going to respect that always, you know? So if you put in that work.
And understanding too, that those people that you have to impress, they're old school, right? And there's one way to impress them: work ethic and quality of work. You know what I mean?
Right.
Be the first one there, be the last one to leave. And when they look at what you did for the day, they go, fucking impressive. You know what I mean? Yeah. And, you know, no amount of anything you can do, if that's the way you want to get that respect to those OGs, that's just what you got to lay down.
Yeah. So true. So true.
But because guess what? the guy 3 decades before that they had to impress was a real hard ass. So they're not going to cut it easy on you. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. No, I'll
So,
always be I mean, as much as, right, I'm getting into the art world, I'm doing the art thing, and that is my passion.
oh my
It's kind of
God.
a one-off niche thing, but at the end of the day, like, I'm a welder at heart. I'm a tradesperson, and I'll never forget kind of that is who I am and kind of what built me. So I'll always have huge respect for trades and anyone going into them.
I love it. And I think it's cool, to be able to see that ability to evolve. In art, before we get into the sculpture, was art something you've enjoyed, even before you started the sculpting? Like, did you like to draw and that kind of stuff just as a hobby, or just to take your mind off of things?
Honestly, I think like way long ago as a young kid, I like to mess around and draw a bit, but I kind of lost that. You get into high school and you're
Yeah.
following social norms, and especially when I got into welding, because that was a completely different route. Completely, you're around a lot of different kind of people, and I think maybe it's always been deep down inside me. I just never had an outlet to to use it, utilize it. So I think it's always been in me. It's just I had this weird chance to, let these skills out. So it's been interesting. It's been a ride.
Okay, so talk to me about that. Talk about the transition. What led you to this? What because like you said, I can tell there's a lot of passion for working on the pipeline. Like you said, hey, that's where I cut my teeth. I'll always be a tradesperson. Like, I love that. So, one, there has to be this gray area, right? Of like, will I be good at this? You know what I mean? It's so far removed from what you were doing. Like, there has to be a lot of self confidence there to say, "Fuck it, we're gonna try it."
Yeah, that's been my motto since day one. Yeah, so that you're definitely right. I think no matter if you're jumping into something like this, the unknown, there's gonna be a bit of a gray area. So you'd laugh if I shown you. I get asked all the time, like, what were your first, art pieces like? And to be straight up, they were dog shit. I'm not gonna lie. I mean, the first thing anything is gonna be very good, but I had this idea in my head, and I'm like, I know how to weld, like I can do this stuff. So when I first started out, I started welding, horseshoes together, and I would make like little reindeer out of horseshoes. And honestly, I could see I wing everything. And I guess for me, where I found all my success is I don't say no to anything, even if I don't think I can do it. I'm gonna try it anyway. And
I love it.
yeah, as far as that transition, I think it was just having the confidence in my welding abilities and just being like, I can do this. It might take me a little while, but I'll figure it out. And that's kind of been, my my way of thinking this entire time, and it's got me this far. So confidence is key, people.
Yes, it is. I completely agree. If you don't believe in yourself, nobody else is. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So you did, and this is around the time you had your first child, right? When you were making this transition, is that correct?
Yeah, so I had Ellie back in 2019, and it was kind of a weird time in my life where I was not ready at all to give up this career, like my welding career that I was so passionate about, but I wanted to be home with her. So like I said, I went and got my B pressure ticket. I had plans of actually getting back to just, that 9 to 5 welding job, just because I still wanted to pursue my career. But then I found it very hard to find something with a very young baby, like where she
Yeah.
was 3 or 4 months old. So I didn't want to miss out. I didn't want to be working the entire, her first year. So that's when I had this idea, you know what, I'll set up shop in the garage here and I'll just start making stuff. So I actually started out not with art. I started making like benches and table bases and like all that kind of stuff, just doing lots of structural welding in the garage, selling it. And then I started just dabbling a little bit, with more artsy stuff. So I welded like a bird out of cutlery. And then I posted it online. And again, that's where it's like, I don't know, I think this is cool. I don't know if other people will. So I posted it. And yeah, I got this crazy awesome response. And then it kind of just started that small, where it was like one little bird. And then I made another and another. And then they started getting bigger and bigger, and it's a gradual thing. But I think, like I said, and said this before, but just not saying no. When you're first starting out, you can't afford to say no to opportunities. And I think you need to know that going in. You need to know this isn't going to be easy. And it's hard work will get you further than anything.
Proud sponsor of the show, Welder Nation. Man, I will tell you what, if you are looking for apparel that is built for that trade, this is made for the 0.1 percenters. Those folks out there putting apparel to the test, working some of the most dangerous jobs in some of the most dangerous places. The last thing you can have is faulty gear, faulty apparel. Go check out weldernation.com. Feel free to use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off. No, I agree. And that saying no, and because if you've got to get outside of your comfort zone to grow, right? You know, if you just keep like, in you know, an analogy on the barbecue side, hey, if you're just comfortable cooking pulled pork, eventually you're going to get sick of pulled pork. Everybody's going to get sick of pulled pork. You know what I mean? You got to try ribs. You got to try brisket. You got to try things. Oh, why haven't you tried it? Well, I've never done one. Guess what? There's a shitload of resources at our fingertips right now that can get you a lot farther than 20 years ago when you just had to wing it and figure it out yourself. You know what I mean? Like, utilize those resources, believe in yourself, take that leap, you know?
Yeah, I love that comparison because that's just it. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're barbecuing, if you're electrical, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You got to take those chances and go outside your comfort zone for sure. And I've been doing that the past couple of years, let me tell you.
Well, one of the things that I love that you've done is, you know, as I mentioned in the intro, you know, you love the outdoors, you know, hunter, fishing, hiking, you know, all those things. And seeing how you've been able to, now that we've grown up from cutlery into birds into some pretty sick ass pieces, you've been able to marry those two worlds together. I was looking at that piece. I don't want to get it wrong. The Going Home Heavy piece that you did with the Wild Sheep Foundation. How fucking cool is that? I mean, that piece is like, I mean, it brought $40,000 for the charity. Like that is sick. Like, how did that come about?
Yeah, I appreciate the compliment. I've done a lot of pieces. That's probably one of my favorite ones. But so the Wild Sheep Foundation, 2 years ago, I got involved with them kind of through Jim Shockey. I did something for his charity event, and then he kind of gave me the idea to connect with them. Mm-hmm. But the first year, so 2 years ago, I built this big doll sheep sculpture. And like that for me was, at the time, like absolutely insane. I had never done anything of that stature, size, or anything like that. So I did this piece for them, and that got me in front of a huge audience. And it was kind of, for me, a really organic, natural connection. So for me, like, my start was in the hunting community, and a lot of my clients, right? I did a lot of wildlife, kind of nature-themed pieces. And so it's kind of cool, like you said, to marry my two passions and, you know, to find success in that. So I did this, like the sheep show, I did this fundraiser, and it went over pretty well. And I made so many unreal connections that pretty much set me up for the whole following year, just from this one show. And this past year in January, I did Going Home Heavy. And yeah, it's wild, the penny that I brought, because if you would have told me that 2 years ago, you're going to sell something for $40,000, I would have said, no fucking way.
Yeah. And hey, ladies and gentlemen, that shit happened in Reno. So we're talking $40K US, not Canadian.
Yeah.
Just to set the record straight.
Yeah. As far as confidence boost, because, you know, I've been told along the way, because I have very, very big goals and dreams, and, you know, people will doubt you, and that'll never sell for that much. And I've heard that many times. So I think just to know that there's people out there who see the quality in this as much as I do, like, that is awesome. Very, very good feeling.
Well, and I feel like too, you know, that there's something you do. I was having a conversation yesterday with Jacob Knowles. He's a Maine crab or a Maine lobster fisherman. And, you know, I feel like, and me and him were talking about how, you know, when the economy changes, you know, people start getting, people will start looking and sacrificing on transactions, right? Like buying a high price durable good or something like that. But where people don't usually end up scrimping is on experiences, right? Because the people that can afford an experience are still going to want those experiences, whether it be, like Total Archery Challenge, where people are just, man, I love archery. This is the coolest shit in archery every year. I'm not going to miss it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with like, he's got some cottages up there, and I'm like, dude, you need to put together like either a lobstering experience along with a cottage. Like, you ain't got to do it every week, but like, have a couple of them a year. And I think people would love it, especially a guy that has a social following like that. I feel like the same with what you're doing. Every one of these is a one of one. You know what I mean? And people, especially when it's benefiting a great cause, are willing to pay a premium because that's something that, whether it's in their office, their business, their home, it is a talking point. You know what I mean? And when you put a great charity and conservation on top of it, I mean, it's fucking win-win. And let's not fool ourselves. Those people at those events have the money to shell out to respect what the trade's done and what the organization's for.
Yeah, no, 100%. You're absolutely right there. I think that's even with some of the headdresses that I've done. It's a pretty cool feeling to be able, like, to help out in something that I'm passionate about, with what I'm doing. It's been really cool.
Jen, are you reading my notepad? Because that's exactly where we're going next with the headdress.
There we go.
No, I just thought that was cool because, one, just the detail and once again, another gorgeous piece, but also another gorgeous piece tied to another great organization. Don't want to get it wrong. The War Party Ranch, right?
Yeah.
And that I loved their story about really just all about empowering women and giving women, life coaching and opportunities. And you can probably talk to it a little better than I can, but it just seemed like a great cause and just another beautiful piece. And I mean, and we saw that one go on eBay for, 18.5 Canadian, which, I mean, once again, Jesus, like that has to be one of those, when you see it's over and it's done, where you just sit back and have that moment of pride and go, man, really cool to be able to take and use my skill to do this.
I love, like, it's so rewarding to be able to give a little bit back. I mean, especially to a cause like that. I got connected with Jeremiah just through Instagram and kind of stumbled upon him and this War Party Ranch. And it really just kind of fits with a lot of my visions and beliefs. And, a lot of it too is they're getting these young women, who kind of need help on their path, teaching them like a skilled trade, finding them work. So, and just kind of building their confidence. So for me to be able to sell this piece, awesome. And then, be able to, give a little bit back. It's very cool. I'm very lucky to do what I do.
Nah, I love it. And you were bringing up, connecting over social media. How long have you had was Instagram where you started?
Yeah. I started up the Instagram. I don't know. It's going to be going on 4 years now. And it was a slow start, I mean, Instagram, like that whole algorithm thing, it's no joke because it's almost like they'll decide when you take off. You know what I mean?
Yes. They love to remind you that they hold the keys to the castle.
And absolutely. That is so true. Yeah. But I mean, for me, like what I've realized is people love to see. It's kind of finding that balance for me because I'm getting to the point where I want to keep some trade secrets, but people love to watch how do I build this, the step by step. So it's kind of, for me, is finding that balance of showing enough, but maybe not every little thing, if that makes sense.
Oh, you got to keep a little something back, keep food on the table.
That's right.
So is there a piece or a post that you look back on and go, all right, this is where it really started helping rev up the account?
That going home heavy piece for me was a really big one. Like that really hit it off on TikTok, Instagram, and then that headdress, I don't know. Actually, it wasn't even the biggest one. It was just like the regular headdresses that I do, but I really showed, how I do the feathers, how I do this and that. And then actually, a couple of weeks ago, I stumbled across somebody else's account on TikTok, I think. And this is where I'm talking about keeping some trade secrets. they had went and copied in like, not to be rude, but maybe, you know, not as well executed, but like my exact design basically. And you know, what's that saying? They say, what's the best form of flattery? I
Yeah.
can't remember. Yeah.
Impersonation. Yeah.
I was
Impersonation. Yeah.
yeah, that's right. But at the same time, you're like, oh man, all right, I gotta keep it a little tighter now.
And that's a shame too, because you know the purpose in putting that stuff out there is to provide inspiration, right? So
Yeah.
here's what I did, and I'm going to inspire you to create your own, not just be, you know, somebody that's not once again willing to work for it and come up with their own shit, but you know, want to what I call coattail it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I don't know. That's disappointing, and that actually kind of led to one of my other comments, and I wanted to get your feedback on is like, you know, when it comes to social media, I feel like 90% of it is fucking awesome. It helps people build brands. It helps people connect. You know, met so many great people. You know, I was just at a Traeger event. So many people that I've commented, DM'd with for years that, you know, I finally got to meet and hug and shake their hand and you grab a picture and just, you know, have a little fellowship. You know, I try to weigh that in when I look at the impact of social media. So I would say 85 to 90% of it's great. And then 10% of it, you know, haters, well, you're not working hard enough if you don't have some. It's just going to happen. But to me, it's the ones also that are, you know, in your case and in some of the other trades folks' case where they're taking that information and trying to, you know, create their version of your stuff. And no, just create your own version of your own stuff. And that's some of the places where I get frustrated. That and just the open bullshit kind of hate of like, okay, you're just a miserable person. You're going to attack anybody. Fuck off.
Yeah, 100%. I found for me, once the videos get past 1 million views, that's when it's like, as far as comments, like you're pretty safe. You have like the safe zone of, you know, people that you kind of like your people. Yeah, I had my tradespeople, hunting crew. And then it's like, once it gets out there, like you're getting those comments. I mean, for me, I try, like once I hit past 1 million, 2 million, I quit replying back. And honestly, I try and quit reading them because there's no point. I found it used to bother me a lot more, but you know, like you said, you're just a miserable person, and I don't want you taking up, you know, space in my head.
Absolutely, this rent ain't free.
Yeah, that's right.
But I will tell you, I've never had that problem. I don't think I've ever had a video over 1 million views. But I'm gonna sympathize with you, Jen. I can't say I agree with you because I haven't been down that road. But
Yeah.
I empathize with you. What is, if we go look at your account, what is your most watched video?
It's a headdress video. I think it's past 7 million now. So that was a big one.
Yeah, that's a huge one.
It's cool to see because it's, you know, what I found is in like the art world anyway, or maybe not just the art world, but people like watching certain things. And for me, I found it hard because people like for example, people like watching the painting and this, there's a lot of colors, but you know, if you're not a welder or in the trades, like I didn't know, I'm like, I don't know if people will find this interesting because I'm just welding, you know? So to grab people's attention, it's very cool to see that, wow, I can reach that many people welding. That's awesome.
Look, I took a couple gubbings the other night and watched a guy on TikTok dig a ditch. So watching what you do in metal, it's amazing.
Awesome.
And I will tell you, like, it's a, you know, and especially these couple of we'll talk about here in a second, couple of the eight pieces. My gosh, like seeing that come together, I'm like, okay, this thumb's stopping. I got to see more, you know?
Yeah.
So I definitely think, you know, as someone that respects welding and grew up around it, but isn't in the trade, you get plenty of people to stop that just can appreciate good work done with people's hands.
That's cool. That's good to hear.
Yeah. And I think one of the things too, in watching some of your videos and just kind of getting ready for our discussion is, you know, yes, the welding comes out, but you do a ton of other metal fabrication techniques too. I mean, that's where I found a lot of interest in the different ways and the different, you know, pieces of equipment that you utilize to get to that final product.
Right. Yeah, no, very true. It's funny because, you know, 2 years ago, or I guess when I first started out a few years ago, I truly had like 3 tools. I had my welder, a hammer, like a carpenter's hammer, and just an angle grinder. But to be honest,
Damn.
yeah, I got so good with an angle grinder, just, all those years oil patch, but as a helper, as an apprentice, that is 90% of what you're doing on the job. You are like, you got to grind it. That's all you're doing. So I got very good at like working the metal, and that to me, right? A lot of it
Mhm.
is welding and placements of the welds, but the grinding and stuff like that, because that's what's shaping essentially like the faces and all of that. So
What is, me not being in the trade, I'm going to use a very primitive description of it, but you use it a lot. It's I don't want to call it, it's not a brake, is it? What's the hammer that keeps going to the machine where you kind of work the metal through and you're shaping it? What's that called?
I don't use one of those, but like I don't like what they use for like knife making you're talking about.
No, like I was watching like one of your videos. It's a blue machine, and it's literally just like this thing
Oh,
that keep.
okay. Yeah, I got you. That's an English wheel. So actually,
Got it.
I got linked up with Bailey Industrial this past year, and that's a new tool that I have in my shop. So up until I got the English wheel, I have just a regular vise on my table, and I'm like everything that I've done that I still do basically, because you kind of just continue to do what you're used to. It's just been like breaking my back, like bending this cold steel in my vise. So this English
Damn.
wheel is making my life a lot easier because it's essentially using pressure. Those two wheels are pushing down the steel, and it like essentially is bending it and shaping it. But up until then, it's just, again, probably very bad on my back, but in good shape.
Yeah, no, it's neat to watch all the different techniques and to think about, like you said, starting out with a welder, an angle grinder, and a friggin' carpenter's hammer that you're trying to shape with, and this and that. That's but I feel like if you know those basics, when you do have the opportunity to bring in new equipment, you can always fall back on those. So you can kind of, start to once again, kind of, hey, this is something new. Test your limits, challenge yourself with this new piece of equipment to see where it can take your finished product, because you have so much more, flexibility with what you can do.
Yeah. And it's kind of cool to be able to tell people that, because I think a lot of the times when they look at some of these pieces, they just assume, that I have these crazy tools making my life easier and getting the job done. But essentially, it's just a lot of like elbow grease and time.
And I noticed too, you were speaking about, the physical toll on your body, even with the busy, work schedule and family schedule, it looks like you still try to take some time to make sure and get some workouts in. And I think that's key for people to understand, where, when your body is your instrument and it's what you makes your living, like, you've got to take care of it.
Yeah, 100%. I think for me too, working alone, because it's different when you're on site and you have the whole crew, to help lift things and this and that. But I do need an overhead kind of pulley or crane system in here, because this shit is getting heavy. But
if anybody's listening in the business, reach out to Jen.
That's right.
Cut her a deal. Take care of the girl.
That's right. Save my back. Yeah, I mean, at this point, I'm lifting all this stuff on my own. A lot, like these pieces, they're getting past 100 pounds, and you're hauling these around continuously, like throughout the entire job. So like you said, for me, it is very important to, get in the gym and stay in shape just so I can do my job for sure.
I love it. So we got to talk a little bit about the 8 pieces. Like, how cool was it to get commissioned to do Kingdom Planet of the Apes, that piece? And that had to come from, because that's 2 separate pieces, right? You had the tuxedo one. So did the tuxedo one lead to them reaching out, or had they already reached out?
No, you got it. You got it bang on there. The 8 piece, the tuxedo one, this is the first piece I think I've done in the past 2 years that I just wanted to do. So it's not this, it will be up for sale. But it's not sold currently. I'm just building it because I've had this vision in my head for like 5 years.
But before we talk about the Kingdom of the Apes, then tell me, like, you said it's been in your head 5 years. Like, why did it get in your head? Like, what was inquisitive about it to make you go, I just fucking want to make that? Like, where did that come from?
Yeah, so I think the whole ape thing, I had this idea of doing like a set of these kind of animals with kind of human characteristics. So I like I come across pictures online. So there's a lot of pictures of like monkeys wearing suits and, smoking cigars and playing pool or whatever. And I don't know. I just thought, to me, like some things just stand out. I have a weird brain. I don't know. I
Yeah,
thought that was
no.
cool as hell to make out of metal.
Well, no, when I was looking at it and getting it built, I'm like, no, you want to talk about a conversation piece.
Right.
You throw that sumbitch in the corner and people going to go, what the hell's going on? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
where did
what
that
is
come from? Yeah.
Yeah. So I started building this, posted on Instagram, and the right person seen it. So I got an email 3 or 4 weeks ago. And at first I thought I get a lot of like scams, like, I got a lot of spam emails. So I get this thing saying Disney potential opportunity. So I barely looked at it and I'm like, nah, that's, I went back. I'm like, well, maybe I'll reply. And yeah, this ended up being like one of those jobs where it's like very nearly impossible job to get done. So they gave me this timeline. I don't even know how much I'm supposed to talk on this, but basically, like, welding, and you probably can assume how long these pieces normally take me to build. So they told me what they wanted, and then they told me the timeline. And the timeline was about 2 weeks, start to finish.
Holy shit.
But the thing was, which maybe that would have been doable. The thing is I had a Texas trip planned. I went to TAC. So I had like my flights booked, everything planned. I'm like, well, I'm not canceling my trip. Can I do both? So I think I got about 120 hours in 5.5 days. And I got this shit done. It was one of the craziest weeks of my life. And again, going into it, like I had to turn on this switch that I've never turned on before, because normally you have room for error. Like you have a month or two. And if you fuck up, you got time to fix those mistakes. But this, like, there was no room for error. It was like I had to get it the first time or I wasn't getting it kind of thing. And I was going off of one picture. They didn't give me like multiple views of this character. They're like, here's the poster. This is what we want. So yeah, it was wild.
But there had to be a feeling when you package that thing up, ship it, like, holy shit, look what I just did with this. Just something I thought was completely impossible. If I try to do it again, probably is impossible. But for this, but for this one time, we knocked this shit out of the park. I mean, that sense of self-gratification had to be pretty badass.
Oh, hell yeah. Yeah, that's
that a girl.
That was a good feeling. Definitely cracked a beer at the end of that one.
Yes, well earned.
Yeah.
And that's going to lead on to other, like, that was like not just for that project and whatever you got commissioned for it, but that is going to lead on to so much more opportunity. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's pretty crazy because on the 20th Century Studios TikTok page, like, them sharing this video of this little welder it's crazy. Even the opportunity that fell into my hands, it's like, right, what are the odds they're looking for? They call me a blacksmith welder. Like, what are the odds that they're looking for somebody to do this, So.
And you were already working on something similar as a passion project, which led them to you. You know what I mean? Like, you picking up and saying, I'm going to do this passion project, gave you that opportunity to get this. Like, it's interesting how and once again, you were just kind of believing in yourself and like, fuck it, I've been wanting to make this. I'm going to make it, not having any idea it was going to lead to like an opportunity that could just take your business to a whole other stratosphere that you probably haven't even thought about.
No, and that's the craziest part too. Like you said, it was kind of just following my heart more than my logical head. I'm like, you know what? I'm doing this. I don't know if anyone's going to buy it, but yeah, for that opportunity to come out of it, a lot of people don't even realize that. They don't know how I came across the Disney job. And it's just so wild. This whole year has kind of been like that, where things are just happening and I'm just riding the wave.
Yeah, so for all you accountants out there, it's not about the dollars and cents sometimes. Just do where your heart is and good shit happens. All accountants listening, please note. All right, proud sponsor of the show, better damn well be Whiskey Bent BBQ. So this is a brand that Nicole and I started a little over a decade ago. You can find our rubs and seasonings in about 500 different retail locations throughout the U.S., Academy Sports, Select, Ace Hardwares, and then obviously here at our store in Lakeland, Florida. If you want to go check it out, please feel free to. WhiskeyBentBBQ.com, and you can use my discount code OldBoyPodcast for 15% off. Because that sometimes finance gets in the way. Sometimes you just got to do what you're feeling, what makes sense, and good things happen. You know, I think it's so cool. Now, what are they? Do you know what 20th Century is going to use it for? Is it going to be like at the premiere, or do you have any idea how they're going to utilize it?
Yeah, so they actually, when I was down in Texas, I hadn't quite finished it up yet. I had about 2 days from when I flew back home. Like, it just is such a crazy month. But to finish this thing up, package it up, and they called me. They're like, hey, can you ship this down tomorrow? We want to hear for like the red carpet movie premiere. I'm like, oh man, like, thanks for the heads up. So it never did get down to the red carpet, but I've been told it will be. So they're going to be using it for events down the road. And I'm sure it'll be in some very cool spots. So it's very exciting.
That's really rad. So speaking of the other cool thing that week, was that your first Total Archery Challenge, or have you been in the past?
No, that was my first one.
So I got exposed to it probably, I don't know if you know John Dudley. He's a really good friend and knock on. So John got me cooking tack probably 3 or 4 years ago with him up in the Big Sky one. And then it evolved to me and him doing it at Jocko's house. And then one year I cooked, but I also went and watched the course with Dudley. That is, and watching it grow over the years, like I've also done the Park City one. That Park City one is wild. I mean, the amount of, archery hunting enthusiasts that come out, like it is a cool collection of like-minded people.
Oh, yeah. That's what blew my mind, was because out here anyway, there's not too many archers. There's a lot of like hunters, rifle hunters. But yeah, when I was there at that event, it was like, wow, there's a lot of bow hunters out here. This is wild. It's cool to see.
Well, and it just to me shows too, like the amazing job that, you got to give Jim and Ava Shockey credit. You've got to give, Dudley, I got to give some credit to Cameron Haynes, Remy Warren, like, these folks that not just go out and live it, but have shared it to help and invigorate other people's passion. You know what I mean? Like I think it's cool because that's an industry that I had, and while I was not immersed in it 10 years ago, I've got to say the amount of people participating in archery hunting is 5, 10, 20x more. And a lot of it's because of those kind of mentors and then these type of events where people can go, oh shit, this is cool. And then because of that, like, I mean, I see your daughter's already slinging some arrows from looking at Instagram. You know what I mean? Like, how rad is that?
Yeah, just to touch on what you were saying, because I think there's two different perspectives on this. Like a lot of people hate on Cam Haynes because, right, it's like hating on getting so many people into it and there won't be enough space. But it's very disappointing to hear that point of view because, they're sharing something that can like essentially change people's lives. And, Cam is the one kind of who got me into bow just from watching him and reading his book. That's how I got into bow hunting. Now I'm passing that on to my daughter. And, it's just disappointing to hear anyone would hate on that because it's such a positive thing.
Yeah. I've heard that before where people are like, well, all these assholes that watch these YouTube videos are going out and hunting all the public land and my honey hole's not good enough anymore. It's like, yeah, man, it's called a sport growing. You know what I mean? That's just like saying, man, I used to be the best pitcher in the league, but then all these other people started playing baseball and I'm just not as good anymore. Well, tough shit, get better, find another piece of land. Like, you know what I mean? Just hustle a little bit.
100%. And that's just it. I mean, it's like, right, it's a dying sport. And if people don't get into it, then the laws or regulations are going to change and it's going to die out. So, I mean, if anything, you should be getting more people into it, getting more people, on your side about hunting and, the positives about that. So, yeah, people are crazy.
Absolutely. So I know you like hunting. You have any? Did you get out last season? Did you get any? I think I saw a pretty good sized bear. You may have harvested. Tell me about that.
Yeah, no, I did get a bear last spring. So that was actually my first archery animal. I got my bow just last December, and I'm very headstrong. I'm like, I'm getting an animal this year. So I got the opportunity to go on a bear hunt, and yeah, it was absolutely wild. I mean, just to have that close encounter with, a predatory animal like that was insane. And yeah, have you been on a bear hunt yourself?
I have not, but I'm pretty good friends with Jen and John Rivet, and they're
Nice.
always like, "Oh boy, we got to get you up here," da da da. I've heard many of bear camp stories, but I've never had the opportunity. But I hear it's one of the most. The people have told me an elk and a bear are like the two things. If you can get with a bow, that you'll just be like, "Holy shit, this is awesome."
Yeah, hell yeah. No, that definitely go on a bear hunt. That was just a crazy cool experience, and just being like up close and personal with a fucking bear. It's awesome to say the least. And then I think just all the work that goes into like, shooting your bow and to see it through. Yeah, it's so rewarding. Very good feeling.
And the other person, and this actually leads to something I wanted to talk to you about. The other person that we definitely have to thank for putting a spotlight on archery hunting, because he's had all the people we just previously mentioned on his podcast, and that is Joe Rogan.
Yeah, there we go.
Joe has made hunting cool, and I did 2 elk camps with Joe, and you will not meet a nicer guy. Like, just one reason I think Joe's so good at what he does is when he doesn't know a lot about a subject, like he tagged out and then stayed the next day and helped me cook, at
That's
Desert
cool.
Ranch. And he's just like, dude, I just want to learn. Like, put me to work. Like, let me help you out. Like, just such a thoughtful and just genuine guy. But I know him talking about just, eating wild game and harvesting wild game and what it means for conservation and why we need to do it. Like, that has also just been a huge catapult for the industry. And I know you've done some work for him. You got to tell me how that all came about, the alien.
Yeah, yeah. No, that's very cool what you're saying. And yeah, leading on to the alien, I mean, like you were saying about marrying, my passions, hunting and welding together, this kind of falls right into that category. But so I got kind of connected with Cam over Instagram. I think through Jim Shockey, he started following me, for my art. And I wanted to get something to Joe. I know, he's a big art guy, and I thought it would be very cool to get something to his studio. So I hit Cameron Haynes up on Instagram. I said, hey, I got this idea. If I make this, will you get this to Joe? And pretty stand-up dude. He followed through. I don't think, honestly, he thought I was going to actually do it. But I took 4 months to build that alien. And when I was all said and done, sent it to Cam. I'm like, hey, it's done. And yeah, a few months later, he actually got it to Joe. And yeah, here we are. Very cool.
That is so rad. And did you get feedback from Joe? I mean, that just looks like something he is a collector of unique stuff. So something like custom built for him around that, like he had to be just so stoked.
Yeah, no, it was super cool. Just, I think, right? Like, that's the biggest compliment that I could receive is Joe Rogan thinks my stuff is cool. So he followed me and yeah, kind of sent me a message about the alien. So that was a lot of work going into that. I think a lot of work and not knowing it, 100% if it's going to get there, where this is going to go. So just kind of having that belief, like, all right, hopefully this gets somewhere.
There's a 50% chance this ends up in Joe Rogan's studio. There's a 50% chance it ends up on eBay as an alien that was gonna potentially be in Joe Rogan's studio.
Yeah, and that's a thought in your head, It's like, is this? But I think that's everything that I do is, some are commissions, but a lot, just my whole career path right now is like, it is like I have huge visions and goals, but there's always doubts. Like, is this gonna happen? So. Yeah, again, it comes back to belief in yourself and seeing it through.
We are getting close to the hour mark, which I can't believe because we have just flown through. And I've got just a couple of things to ask you left. So I know recently you welded copper for the first time. Kind of talk a little bit about that experience. What did you learn? Was it as challenging as you thought? Was it more challenging than you thought? And once again, just kind of, putting yourself out there and trying new things.
So that was the dog tooth tuna, like that skeleton fish that I did.
Which looks so sick, by the way.
Thank you very much. So that was another one of these jobs that, you're familiar with Bert Soren, I'm sure, if you're in that community.
Yeah.
So he contacted me. He had this idea, it was his buddy's wedding. He wanted to get this fish done, but he didn't just want a fish done. He wanted like a replica of like the actual dog tooth. Mm-hmm. So he sent pictures and measurements of like each individual bone. So basically I was doing like taxidermy. So I printed off like these pictures and I scaled each individual bone and then like put the jaw together and built this fish. So on one side it was skeleton, and then the other side, like you can see from the pictures, was like lifelike, but very gnarly looking.
Yes.
And he wanted the copper just because, the color of the gills and their eyes are kind of that color. So I think for me, it wasn't just the copper. For me, the challenge, I'm not a TIG welder. Most of my career was stick welding, MIG welding. So for me, the challenge was TIG welding. I'm doing something I'm not 100%, confident in, but it was very cool to incorporate the different metals and like just really expand my skills. Cause now I got confidence going into the next job. Like I can weld copper and brass and everything you do, you get a little better at every time.
I love it. And then you had mentioned earlier, some are commissioned, some aren't. Like percentage wise, is it like 50-50, 70-30?
I would say 99% commissioned. And then I'll do like a one-off, like that chimp. I'm like, fuck it. Yep. I'm doing like a me job and I'll take like a couple of weeks and, work on something like that. But most of the stuff I do is commission, and that takes up, most of my year.
But that's good. That's great. That's work you can all plan around. And then if opportunities come up, well, you just got to work a little harder, young lady.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, always room to work harder.
No, I love that. And so people are going to want to know, any idea when the chimp may go up for sale?
Yes, the chimp should be done in about 3 weeks. So in about a month's time, I'll be posting this chimp up for sale. It should be a pretty epic piece. So definitely look out for that one.
That's awesome. I'm going to talk and see if we maybe can't move this podcast to around the time that you put it up for sale and just give you a little extra exposure. That would be actually pretty cool.
That would be very cool. Yep.
I like it. We will talk to the powers to be and see if we can make that happen, young lady.
Awesome.
And then last question, I ask it to every guest, and that is, you've got the experience. You've been on the Old Boy podcast. I hope you've enjoyed it. One or two people you think we should reach out to and have them on that would be a solid guest that our listeners would enjoy?
Good question. Ray Ripple. I'm a big fan of her. I think she's badass. She's also another welding art chick. And who else? I mean, are we talking just Trollco people or just?
No, it doesn't have to be Trollco people, trades folks, hunting, just people you think that our community would enjoy hearing from.
Yeah. Well, you should get Cam Haynes on here. That'd be big. You've had Jocko on here, haven't you?
Yeah. We had Jocko and Dudley on for the first episode.
Oh, okay. Very cool. Oh, you know what? Here, I got one really cool person. So she actually does all the leather work for Montana Knife Company.
Yeah. We had Josh on too.
Yeah.
What's her name?
Francesca with Teton Leather. She is an absolute badass. She's 29 and she's running like this full scale business. Just a really cool.
Hell yeah.
She's my top pick.
I love it. All right, then that's the two we will reach out to. And hey, you can always forward Cam our way too. We'd love to have him on.
Yeah, there we go.
But before we let you go, once again, thank you so much for the discussion. It was so cool to hear your story. And like I said, I've always been impressed with your work, but now after getting to understand, the heart you have behind it, the passion, like I respect it even more now. So thank you so much. But I want to give you an opportunity, let people know where they can find you at. I know you work with a couple other brands, feel free to mention those and just let you have a little piece on the way out.
Cool. I appreciate that, Chad. It was really fun talking to you today and getting to know you. As far as where they can find me, I do have a website. metalmonkeydesignco.com. That's kind of where you can connect with me, purchase my stuff. And then Instagram handle, official Jen Phillips. And those are probably the two base ones that you need to know. But again, thanks for having me on. It's been fun.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And I hope you guys enjoyed it as much as I did. And till the next episode, take care. We'll talk to you soon. Thank you so much for listening to the Old Boy Podcast. Please subscribe, like, set your notifications, whatever you got to do to make sure you're getting the latest episodes. Also, feel free to go back, whether it be YouTube, Spotify, Apple, get some of the past episodes, check those out, and always feel free to check out our socials, Old Boy Podcast. Thank you so much.